I always think it starts with a plan, every day a plan. It's like anything else. It's like a coach, you got to go in with a plan to the game. I mean, that's all a coach does, really. People say, oh, well, what do these people need coaches? They're all professionals. But in a way, someone's got to come up with a plan, right? It's, or else people don't know what's happening, and that's what creates anxiety and miscommunication and so forth. So stress is obviously these days much more prevalent because of modern society. We run around doing a lot of things. We have very little time for rest and recreation and leisure. Leisure is very important. So it's significant that we have a plan, and I call it a budget in a way. We have to budget our energy. So just like we budget money, we budget our energy. We have a certain amount for work, we have a certain amount for play, a certain amount for leisure, a certain amount for rest, and obviously for interacting with loved ones and doing other things. And obviously fun, you cannot underestimate the power of fun. And that's why it's important to have that budget of energy, because some people are doing too much work, some people are having too much fun. So what we do is when you budget your energy then and you plan, then okay, this is how much fun I'm going to have, this is how much leisure, this is how much recreation, but I also need to fit it in within my work. So most people, in the end, what we're looking at is having a good balance. So that what you're saying is correct. Some people go overboard on the other way, but I know a lot of people that don't do it at all and spend their time inside or even gaming. I wouldn't say that's fun. That's more of an addiction. I think for starters, what's good in our lives, we have to make sure we have it in the forefront. So when we create a plan, it's important to know the things that are working for us, and including the people around us that are working for us, that don't stress us out tremendously. Because in my private practice, I find that a lot of the stresses arise from other people, and some that we can't avoid, of course. We have to work with them or we have to live with them and so forth, but there are a lot we can. So that's always a good start. In a way, plan out the amount of time you're going to dedicate to certain people that you don't need to see, and you'll find that stress levels decrease tremendously. Yeah, for example, there might be an old friend that used to be a good friend, but now you don't have much in common, for example, and they may ring you and ask you for something, or they may be getting a lot more out of the relationship than you. It's like a transaction, really. I mean, to put it crudely, which is not, but if we look at a transaction, we wouldn't be in business with someone that's taking more than what they're giving. At the very least, has to be equal or similar, And with a friend, I understand sometimes they're in need and we give more at that time, but then it has to be reciprocal. They have to be there when we need them. But so those people we just hang on to, maybe because of historical value, we feel, they were in one aspect of our lives at one stage of our lives as well, important, but we have to reassess and review. That's always a good start. With people, that's always good. Then obviously our activities we have to review. Sometimes we continue being involved in activities that we don't really like that much, just because it's a habit or because we want to achieve something. I remember years ago I used to coach, my son started playing soccer and then I continued coaching, and I never got much satisfaction out of it until my 13-year-old daughter said, "Why do you do it then for Dad?" And I realized, why do I do it? It was just a habit. It was just a thing. I thought, this season comes, they ask me, you want to do it? I go, yeah. But it didn't give me much satisfaction. I wanted to do it. I enjoyed the thought of it, but not the actual doing. And a lot of it was because of my lack of ability, but also it didn't suit my personality, that type of situation, that type of work, So it's one of those things that we have to really think about the activities that we do, the people that we do them with, and the activities we do. Then try to look at new activities, try new things, new adventures, start a new sport or a new craft, learn a new instrument, something like that, That's always a good start. So people and activities. And also after that, of course, there's bigger things we have to review. Our job, our relationship with our close ones, our close our loved ones. Yeah, understand how much stresses it causes or they cause in our lives. And to a certain degree, we have certain commitment and responsibilities to people. I understand that you can't just cut people off and live under a rock, of course, because then you probably won't be stressed, but you won't be happy either. So again, moderation, balance. A lot of it is finding time to do the things we want to do and do less of the things that we dislike. And if you really think about your life, all of us do a lot of things that we dislike, sometimes because we have to. And when we were younger, we had certain jobs that we disliked. Okay, we paid the bills. And for some of us, we're very fortunate we're doing a job that we love. That wasn't always the case for me. I've done dozens of different jobs, and I've been a psychologist for the last 29 years, but I'm 58 now. Prior to that, I had many, many other jobs. And so I remember that, and I appreciate where it got me. But I also realized that not everyone is at a stage of their life that they enjoy exactly what they do for 8 hours a day or more. So it's an easier world now in the sense of technology and in comfort. But I think for us, I think we were saying like you're about within the same generation roughly, those ones that grew up in the 70s and 80s, I think we had a good balance of technology in our life, but it wasn't as intrusive as it is now. We still had enough technology to do things, to watch colour TV and to travel and to ring someone out of a house phone if you had one. And we had pain medicine and so forth. But now it's, I think, too much, the technology. And whilst they have it easy in one way, they're also presented with a lot of things and temptations, if you like, that we didn't have. We spent our times outside. The world has changed. Now kids can't just be on their own outside till it gets dark. And even before, there was a certain authority. Even the neighbour could say, "Hey, get back to school, get back home." But now we've lost a lot of that authority, and the kids know it. And so there's no boundaries, or the boundaries are blurred. We're a bit more naive too, in a way. Kids these days, they have too much access, if you like, to information, and therefore for parents have to keep an eye on that. It's very important for young people to be able to be safe in that environment. But yeah, the stresses that a parent has these days is very different to the stresses that the other generation or our generation had. And so for me, it's two things. One is to plan out what you're going to do throughout each day, have a bit of a plan to go into each day. That releases a lot of stress. Even if you just write a list of things to do, that's always a good thing. Even if it's things that you do regularly, it's always good to write them down, have that visual. Another thing is to, like what I call budget our energy, which is look to see where we put our energies, because a lot of the stresses come from things that we put too much time in and we don't get much back. And that includes activities and people. So have a look at your activities. That's always good to see, because sometimes we fall into habits and we have activities that don't really provide much for us, and we just continue doing them just because we've done them for a while. And there's people around us as well take more than what they give in our lives. So sometimes we're in a situation we can also distance ourselves if we can. Some people, of course, we can't, but some, yeah, definitely can. So that's where we're up to at the moment. But stress is definitely, it's nothing new. It's been, especially in the modern world, it's been quite prevalent, especially for the last few decades. It does get worse because when financial situation worsens, which it has all around the world, especially in the last 5 years, things have gone up, as we all know, but the wages have remained roughly about the same. That creates a lot of stresses. But I don't know if you guys have been to a third world country. I've lived in one or two, and people seem to be happy anyway. So they adapt to a certain financial situation as well, because happiness isn't based obviously on finances, but stress is. So those people that are struggling, as long as they've got enough to cover most things, then the stress will be okay and manageable. But a lot of the times it isn't, and the stress comes from more like an effect of the finances, with not being able to go out or doing social activities, and which allow us to release a lot of the energy, because the stress is a bit of an energy that needs to be released. That's why the number one thing I tell people with stress, even anxiety and depression, is physical exercise. If you can do a certain amount of physical exercise every day, And it doesn't have to be a lot. Start with a 20-minute walk every day, though, 7 days a week. Just make it a habit. And, of course, going to the gym, playing sport, if you can add that every now and then, that's good. But it's more the discipline of having that structure, that physical outlet. So that's very, very helpful. Physical activity. Some people can't, I'm aware of that, or some people can't afford it, some people are limited physically. And obviously we can only do what we can do to our limits. But if you're in a reasonable situation that you can walk, maybe even jog or swim, then it's important to do that. If you're at an age where you can still play sport, any type of sport, doesn't have to be anything major. There's lots of different sports. That's one good thing Australia provides, different sports for anyone. It's not the same in other countries. In some other countries, they only play one or two sports. And here in Australia, we have an options of so much. So anything that might suit you, whether it's a team sport or an individual sport. So anything from water sports to field sports and courts and so forth. So it's, that's very important for stress, to have a consistent outlet for our stress, a physical outlet. For young men, for example, I tell them, get a boxing bag. That's great. Just punch it, get into martial arts, that type of stuff. And even and girls as well, young ladies can do that too. At a certain age, of course, that might be a bit too much, but there's other things. Walking's great. Just walking, swimming. Yeah. So, but every day you've got to try to lock it in, because there will be days that we can't do it for some reason, whether it's raining or we're sick or we just don't have the time. So you aim for 7 days a week. So yeah, physical, number one, physical exercise or a physical outlet. Another thing is a creative outlet. Maybe find out if you liked painting before, or knitting, anything like that, writing. You could be semi-creative as well, such as in one way or another doing, some people like building things and so forth. And so a creative outlet is very important. It doesn't have to be daily, but definitely have something, a project to work on. That's great for stress release. And and then what I might call like the spiritual, if you like. As a psychologist, I don't go much into that area because it's not my area, but obviously the human being's made more than just flesh and bone. So there might be things that we want to do that give us a lot of satisfaction, but maybe comfort, and philosophy, reading philosophy books is great. Some people take religion quite seriously, and that helps them as well, meditating and so forth. Could be, there's a lot of metaphysical things that one could tap into, and helps other parts of our mind, if you like. But definitely, so the psychological, the creative, and the more metaphysical one, that in a way, feeds our soul in a different way. And sometimes it doesn't have to be anything too much with the spiritual. So it could be, sometimes we listen to music and it's a wonderful experience, and it is almost like a divine experience. Sometimes when you listen to a song from your childhood or your adolescence, or when you're in love that first time, the nostalgia. Yeah, it's you just feel great. It's a mixture of sadness and happiness, but it's part of our lives. Music's great. I always say to people, try to have music in your life. If you can play some music, that's great too, or sing, or play doesn't have to be the drums or anything. You don't want to keep the neighbours up, but there's so many instruments that you can just. It's a lot of fun. You'll find that when you do interact with an instrument, any type of instrument, and you get to have the basis for it, then it's very soothing. And when you're alone too, or you feel lonely, an instrument's fantastic. Whether it's a guitar, piano, violin, anything like that. Obviously, the guitar is the most common one because it's easy and carried around. But the easiest one to learn would probably be the piano because you got all the notes there. So there are options as well for those three areas of our life. That we need to tap into: the physical, the creative, and the metaphysical, if you like, in order not to call it this, or the emotional, maybe. So a good balance of that on a weekly basis. The physical weekly, creative maybe couple of times a week, and the other one once a week for the more emotional one, I think, as an outlet anyway. So just to recap, because we've got a couple of new people here, we stress in the modern world it's important to have a plan, have a bit of a plan when you go into the week and even the day. You might know already what you're going to do. So sometimes we just leave it and then we forget. When you have a plan, even if you know what you're going to do, it's like a bit like a coach and the players, the professionals that get paid lots of money, they already know what they're going to do. But just before they get in the field, there's a whiteboard. Then, okay, you're doing this, you're playing that, and he just reminds them, and everyone's on the same plan. And so we need to be in the same plan as our brain. That's the best way I can say it, because our brain is an organ, but sometimes it doesn't respond the way we want it to respond. So we've got to get it to focus. Okay, today I'm going to, or say tonight, make the plan for tomorrow. I'm going to wake up a certain time. I'm going to go to the bathroom, have a shower, have breakfast. You can write that down. Go for my 20-minute walk, or I'm going to go to work, or I'm going to meet up with someone, or whatever that may be, and just write a few points down and carry it with you that day until the time you're going to go to bed. So it might be 7, 8 points. It will take you literally 60 seconds, a minute to do. And things can be amended. So you can say, oh, yeah, I'm not going to do that today. You basically, you can just leave it for tomorrow. We're just recapping with the modern world, the stresses. So if you do the plan, go in with a plan. I used to run these courses on journaling for mental health. They're great. I don't do it much, but it does work. But I recommend for people to do it to start. And I just write a few things in there. Sometimes just some thoughts, things that I think are clever, maybe like a book title or something. But a lot of it is just like if I slept in when I shouldn't have, I could get up tomorrow. In capital letters, it kind of like stays in my mind. Oh, that's right, I've got to get up. Or I missed out on doing my walk, or I missed out, or I didn't. I've got to pay a bill. Something could be something practical, and you'll be surprised. A lot of the stresses happen because we're not on top of things and we feel overwhelmed. And the best thing for being overwhelmed is not being overwhelmed. Funny that, eh? But how do we not become overwhelmed? You need to get organised. That's the only way. If you're organised and you live a normal life, you're not the president of some country, you got a lot of stuff on, and normal lives, kids to school, grandkids, pay the bills, maybe some issues with a neighbour and whatever, a couple of relationship, maybe some financial tightness, just normal living, then you shouldn't become overwhelmed if you plan things. And when you plan, it has to be with priority. Because maybe the Telstra bill that's due is not due till next week. So you can write it down, but there might be something that was due last week, and that's what you got to get to. And the more you delay it, you're just stressing out and then doing it anyway. So it doesn't work for it at all. So the best thing is stay on top. Stay on top of things. Make a list of the things you got to do. And then some things that aren't very important, but it might be creative. For example, writing a book. The first book I wrote took me 4 years. People ask, how do you do it? Because you're very busy. That's when I started organising myself, I think, because I'm not the most organised person in the world, but I have to have certain amount of organisation or else things don't get done, or a report for a lawyer or a letter for a patient or whatever that may be, a link for this Zoom that has to get done. So I put for example, on my phone, an alarm, 6:20, Zoom. Let's talk about stress. Oh, I might forget. I remember it all day, but you never know. And so I've learned that that's far better than then backtracking. And sure, is it 100%? No, of course not. I still forget things, and sometimes I pick up too many things, and so you have to then prioritize probably, and maybe even drop a few things if you can, yeah. But no use doing all that and not having the balance. So this number one thing for stress is balance. The balance with your walk, the balance with your social life, the balance with a bit of fun, recreation and leisure. Because there's some people that have too much fun, some people that work too much, and that's not balance. So it has to be within that. And one good exercise, 5 minutes a week. Just turn everything off, go into your room where there's nothing, no computer, even light if you can, turn it off, and just you and your mind and your brain. And just think about your life. 5 minutes is a long time when you're just thinking about your life. Okay, my work, my relationship, my activities, the things I do. I was saying earlier on, before you guys came on, sometimes we do things by habit and activity because we've been doing it for a while. I remember I was doing this coaching years ago, and I never really enjoyed it. And I was saying to my 13-year-old daughter at the time. Now she's 31, but this coaching has never given me any satisfaction. And she just said, "So why do you do it?" And that was a good question, I thought. And I stopped. I'll finish that season or whatever. It's good. And actually, it wasn't paid or anything, but I just didn't enjoy. I enjoyed the idea of it, but not the actual. I just and plus maybe, not maybe, for sure, I didn't have the ability maybe or the personality for that type of thing. So we have to pick up on things on those activities that we continue, or meet up with someone, because we meet up with them every now and then, but they're really taking more than what they give us in our life. And not because it's a transaction in that sense, but it's because it's a exchange of energy, as you know. So if someone takes more energy than what they provide, eventually, you get stressed, you run out, you get overwhelmed, and then you might react in a manner that you don't wish to. So it's better to pick up on that beforehand and then slowly start making decisions. Sometimes they're difficult, these decisions, to not do an activity that we've done for a while. It happens with sports people that they suffer from depression. Some of them, of course. Sorry, that was that they suffer from depression because it's what they've done since they were kids. A footballer or anyone in sport, really. And so, especially at that level, if they're professional, the people chanting their name and so forth, they were in a certain level, and so it's hard to adapt. And so sometimes we just continue doing things, but we shouldn't. And so stress, to avoid stress, that's what we have to do. We have to really have insight into our own life first. We can do the practical things, like we said, about the physical outlet, the creative outlet, and the emotional outlet. But we also have to have that 5 minute a week where we think about our life in general. And you'll find that if you work out, there are a few activities or people, that are providing you with too much stress, unnecessary, because sometimes, of course, if it's our kids, our spouse, our parents, of course, there might be interactions that we don't like, and it's going to cause a bit of stress, and we have to work it out because we have certain responsibilities as well. But you'll find that once you think about these things, there's a lot of people out there that you're providing way too much time for and not getting much back, and stressing you out. And when you make the decision, it's hard, but you feel better. You'll feel a lot better. And you don't even have to tell them. You can just slowly withdraw and use that time for your walk or for things that are going to be less stressful. So it's one of those things. I've been working for about 29 years as a psychologist. I like asking people, one of the first questions is, what are the things that stress you out in your life? So it seems to be, a lot of it is unavoidable, but there's a lot that is. So let's filter out the stuff that is unnecessary in our lives that causes stress. And that's an individual thing that each one of us has to do. And sometimes we've got to hang in there because it's suitable. It might be a job that stresses us out, but we need it, because it's tough times, we can't find another job, or it pays well, but it stresses you out and so forth. Or it's just what there is at the time. Or you have a commitment to someone that you need to be there. And so I get that. But there'll be a time where you'll be able to set yourself free from that and use that into something positive. And I find that whenever we make a big decision like that, whether it's changing job or even moving, or sometimes even relationship that have collapsed and we need to start again, I find that for most people, and even in my life, I found too, that eventually it kind of like works out. If it kind of like works out, and sometimes, or most times, we're actually in a better place for it. And so, can't avoid stress, impossible, but we can manage it, guys. That's basically it. So we manage it through planning, we manage it through budgeting, what I call it, budgeting our energy to things, to activities and to people. And we also manage it by trying to eliminate unnecessary stresses in our life that we can, like activities or things that we're doing by pure habit, but when we really think about it, they're not providing much satisfaction. And on top of that, maybe even some stress. And if it's not stress and it's not satisfaction, we don't have to do it. It's still a bit of a waste of time, because that time could be used for other things that are more positive. Even just watching a movie you love, or listen to a song, like we said, music, or you could just be spending some time on your own and reading a book. And that's far more satisfactory, and also enjoying part of enjoying life with the simple things. So and so stress is a little bit like anxiety in that sense, but anxiety is inbuilt within all of us. Our brain, actually most animals have it in one way or another. It allows us to react to the environment and to be a little bit more conservative in our choices. So if we were living in a state of nature, in the jungle or in the bush, anxiety would be very helpful, because you'd be more vigilant, you won't take unnecessary risks and so forth. But stress comes from the accumulation of things. We're taking up too much. Other people in our lives are also not maybe responding the way we'd like them to. And there are many other stresses, like financial ones, and also stresses of the world. That earlier on we were talking with Marie when we were waiting for everyone else to come in, just about that the world seems to be in a more stressful, if you like, place at the moment. But it's always been that way in one way. It's just that we have more information as well these days, so we're more aware, obviously through the internet and other things of what's happening. But there seems to be a lot of people stressing us out that are running governments and so forth. But again, we have to decide how much effect do we have on that. And if it's zero, then we have to eliminate it, or try to eliminate it out of our head. And the way we do that is by positive self-talk. Just say to yourself, I'm not going to think about that, because I have no control over that. And the more you do that, the brain will pick up. It'll continue to do it, of course, but it's just like learning a golf swing. Of course, at first you're going to miss the ball, then you're going to hit it, it's going to go sideways. But eventually, if you keep going and you've got the right technique, you should be okay. It takes a lot of time. But with positive thought building, it's a bit like that, the process, but it does work. People usually give up doing it because they don't see a change, but it's a bit like losing weight. Other people, when they don't see you for a while, they notice. So this is the same. You just keep doing it, or when you try to add muscle as well. If you do 5 reps of biceps, you're not going to see a difference. But if you do that over a month, every day, and add a bit of weight, there's going to be a difference. It has to be. It would be against nature and science if it weren't. So with negative thoughts, which is the basis of our brain, because that's the way our brain works, with negative thought, that's why we all have anxiety, because what if that happens? So you get anxiety. So the brain always thinks of the worst scenario in order to keep us safe. That's why when we jump off a rock into a lake, we get anxiety or we worry, because your brain's thinking, why are you doing this? It's not going to give us any food, or it's not going to add anything because the brain is not interested in fun or recreation, or it's just interested in survival. So, but as humans, because we have a higher state of consciousness, more than other animals, of course, because our brain is larger and so forth, we're aware that in order to gain a certain amount of peace and happiness in our lives, we have to take calculated risks. We have to ask someone out. We have to prepare for an exam and try to pass it. We have to go for a job interview. We have to cross the road. All these things are minor risks, if you like, and we convince our brain to do it because we know that we have to. So it's our brain doesn't like it at first, but after you do it consistently, the brain gets used to it. And it's people that jump out of planes that have 2,000 jumps, they just do it like if it's like basically, I don't know, like walking out the front door for us. And it's because their brain's used to, oh yeah, this is going to happen. They've already done it. And so we're very adaptable as humans, our brain is. So yeah, that's basically what we need to do. Plan your day, write a little list, start journaling if you can, maybe little thoughts here and there, yeah, and try to eliminate some activities that we don't necessarily need or don't provide us with much enjoyment and we don't necessarily have to do. Start doing more of the stuff that, for example, when you have that 5-minute thought exercise that gives you insight into your state of life now, right now, your job, your relationships, what you're doing, how much exercise, what you're eating and so forth. When you do that 5 minutes every week, you'll find that there are some things that you're going to remember. Oh yeah, when I was 15, I really loved playing tennis, or I used to play the cello, and maybe get back into something that you love doing. Or maybe you've always wanted to write a book, start it, It's these days, especially with internet, you can just publish it. Or maybe you just want to do it for yourself, start reading poetry or writing poetry. Something that maybe might have sound fantastical when you were when you think back, but it's usually throughout our adolescent years, we're usually on the money of the things that we'd like to do. It's just that we don't follow up on it because life, Sometimes we can't. Sometimes other things take more precedence. But if you remember some of the satisfying activities, maybe drawing, yeah, or watching a movie. Maybe you haven't watched a movie for a while, or one of your old shows. Get back into those things. It provides us with certain satisfaction, and that type of stuff from the past, like watching an old show or listening to music that we like. That also provides food for our soul as well. So that provides that gives us the creative and the emotional side. And of course, physical exercise, guys, every day. Yep. The everyday thing is you're planning and you're exercising. When I say exercise, you don't have to train to be an Olympian. You just have to walk for 20 minutes, but do it. Get your joggers on, go. Once you start, it's easy. The thought of doing it is harder. You're on the couch, you're watching Judge Judy. You're thinking, nah, I don't want to do this. But once you get your joggers and walk out, done, especially now the good weather's coming. So that's basically it, guys, I think, with regards to stress. And that's the difference between stress and anxiety, which is, it's unavoidable, guys. So all we can do is manage it, remember. So when you see people that aren't stressed, they are, really. It's just that they manage it better, that's all. But also, guys, I was going to say what I usually provide information in these sessions, because I was saying earlier on, I've been doing this for the last few years, and this year's about stress. So it's very practical, this one. But if you are someone that suffers from stress and you find that it's overwhelming and you've tried these things that I've been talking about, definitely talk to your GP and try to get a mental health care plan to see a psychologist or a counsellor, because sometimes there are other underlying issues or some clinical issues that don't allow the person. Sometimes the severe anxiety that the person might have might also influencing your stress levels, or there might be depression, and there might be a chemical imbalance, and sometimes there are some medications that help with that as well. So I would definitely recommend that. Not very many psychologists bulk bill these days, but there are some that do. So by all means, if you can't afford it, you'll be able to see someone eventually who bulk bills, and psychiatrists these days are very, very expensive, and none bulk bill pretty much. I think maybe one or two, but a long time to get in. But start with your GP if that's the case. But I guarantee if you do those things, have that balance, start with a plan, maybe a journal, do your exercise, have the creative outlet and the emotional outlet, do the 5-minute thought process about your life every week. Just find 5 minutes, no phone, no nothing, just you and your mind and your brain. Remember, the mind and the brain are two different things. The mind is you, the one that makes the decisions. The brain's just an organ. The best way I can put it, it's like your liver. Your liver's a wonderful organ. It's amazing. Just the things it does. I mean, not to mention the brain, of course. It's actually incredible. But the brain is still dumb in the sense, it's like your computer. It's like this computer. If I don't give it a sign or a signal, if I don't give it an order, it won't do anything. It'll just stay there. So now I'm going to change the view. I'm going to do this multi-immersive thing now that we did last time. There it is. We're all in, look, we're all in pictures. That's because I told the computer to do that. The brain's the same. If you don't tell the brain what you want, then it's not going to do it. It's just going to go with normal. The mind has to tell the brain what to do. So, okay, I don't need stress. I don't need anxiety. I'm going to depression. I'm going to exercise. So all these things you have to discipline yourself, create good habits. Aristotle, the great Greek philosopher from 2,500 years ago, said that happiness is built on good habits. That's it. So you got to build good habits. And the way to build good habits is by doing it every day. 24 hours. 48 hours is too long. And if you can't exercise one day, just put your joggers on and take them off. At least you've started it. And you know at that time, it's the time I walk. And so you keep with the habit. Just create that habit. And don't panic. Stay with it because it will change. You just have to, if you ever learn an instrument, for example, the guitar or something, you find it's hard, you want to give up. And eventually, after about a month, you're actually strumming a song and now you're enjoying, and that's the same with psychological symptoms. You've got to stay with it. It's just the same as whether it's losing weight, saving money, or whatever it may be. Just stay with it. Don't worry about the task. Just take it on board as something you do every day, a habit, a lifestyle, and you just do it. And that's why I've spoken to a lot of successful people, and if you watch interviews of successful people, whether it's in sport or finance, business or politics or whatever it may be, they're very busy, and they ask, a lot of the questions is, how do you motivate yourself to do this, or how do you do this, or how do you find the time? They don't know most of the time because it's just ingrained, it's just what they do. It's just what they do, It's they get up, they do this, they don't do that, and they eat that, they don't eat that, and they think this way. They allow certain people in their lives, they don't the others, and that's it. And so, but they don't know how they do it. It's a bit like a gifted sports person. They just know that they do it, but they don't know how. It's just or a painter or a musician, yeah. So but we can learn. We don't have to be Mozart, but we can learn certain skills, especially with the mind over the brain. So. I was going to go back to the analogy of the liver. So the liver is a wonderful organ, just like the brain. But when you're thirsty, and you've got a bottle of water in one hand, a bottle of vodka in the other, the mind decides what you're going to put in your mouth. So if you put water, the liver's going to filter it. If you put vodka, the liver's going to filter it as well, because that's what it does. So the brain's the same. If you put positive thoughts in your head, it's going to accept it. It's going to filter it. If you put negative, it's going to do it too. It's not going to reject it and go, hey, Carlos, why are you thinking so negative? No, that's the mind has to do that. So remember that. It's not. It just doesn't happen. We have to stay on top of things with our mind. And the brain eventually will go, this is the way we're thinking now. And so that's how it happens, guys. But unfortunately, there's no shortcuts.